this weird present moment has this very distinct flavor, and you can't really evoke.
Entirely new classes of drugs, thanks to very generous support over many years.
We have that, like, the planet is very, very sick.
Well, just think about
I can express ideas because I have studied language. And I worked very hard. Not that I didn't like it, I intensely.
And I'm very pleased to be here at my first G20 summit and pleased to have had the opportunity.
There's a great anecdote about the very first photograph taken of Earth from the vantage.
At the very least, we should expect that they should do their jobs and protect us.
Can turn to hardworking, incredibly well-trained, very smart, that we have access.
Reich took the wealth of two admittedly very rich men, Bill Gates.
The position is that men need the very things that women have identified that they need to live the lives they say.
Is very remarkable, especially in places like Afghanistan. And it's important that we never forget.
And then you're cut off from all these very good things. You know, it's so sad.
And is replicated so that it's very secure and hard to tamper with. Which brings me to...
Because even very basic advances in digital technology have enabled them to
Taking in tens of thousands of calories while expending very few. And these animals evolved.
And so the side effects that you're all very familiar with, hair loss.
And finally, let's bestow credit in a very generous way. So I don't know if you've ever looked at the credits of
a score that no athlete has come very close to since. We thrive not when
He's very keen on, his work is very humorous anyway, and he'd really like to get his hands on the system.
So now I'd like you to imagine playing a very different role, that of the scout. So the scout's job at work is disproportionately impacting the very people who need it most. It's impacting the
kitchen, and growing up, even though they were very loving to us, my sister and I,
have a very different emphasis on what they think is important. For example, John Hopkins is counterproductive to achieving the very goal that we all want, and that's safer community.
Today is my 89th birthday, and to my very considerable surprise, I find myself...
But I have to say, here's one thing I want to be very clear about.
Going on. And as he said, getting very wet, but being very happy. Because he was...
Speak very much English, and he didn't speak very much Spanish. This somehow worked out. They got married. My mom and anxiety or signs that we aren't coping very well with the pressure. But what if you viewed them instead?
I realize that so many of our residents can eat very little, if anything at all, but we realize
they're very fascinating objects from a theorist's perspective, and really I first got
smashed to bits by a very angry sanitation worker with a very large shovel. I had no idea.
I did it again, and it was a very good idea. I wouldn't be standing here talking.
And that means that we need to be very attuned to the fact to embrace the change.
Of art. This gene that I have on is actually the very first gene, and it was made on this gene.
This is now very good for business. Almost all of the agenda of the big pivot is good for business in the long term, in the medium.
That's why during the State of the Union address, I was very explicit. I said, look, not every trade deal has lived up to the hype.
Yet exist, and very little on building